Tired of your car insurance rate going up, even with a clean driving record? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/Libsyn today. That's JERRY.ai/LIBSYN.
Hello and welcome to episode 315 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
I'm James Whittingham, sustaining myself on 900 calories and 0 carbs.
This week, the first grid storage battery in the U.S. that can discharge for 8 full hours is now online. This extremely difficult engineering problem was finally solved when someone said, hey, why don't we just add more batteries?
What effect is climate change having on major sporting events such as this year's World Cup? Let's just say things could be slowed down due to extreme heat, like me hosting this podcast on 900 liquid calories.
Move over agrivoltaics. We now have offshore wind-aquaculture. This is where you use the area around offshore wind turbines to grow seaweed. The only problem? Convincing people that seaweed is delicious.
All that and more on this edition of the Clean Energy Show. Okay, health update.
Yeah.
I'm 11 pounds lighter than the last time you saw me.
Okay.
I mostly peed that out every 30 seconds or so. I went to Saskatoon, and I was really worried about having to pee every 30 seconds. If you go to Saskatoon, it's a 2.5-hour drive for my son's convocation. And I dehydrated myself, which made me feel like crap during his convocation.
Yeah.
But I had to do it because I only peed once to the good people in Davidson, where I stopped to charge at the gas station there. Thank you for accepting my urine. And congratulations to my son, Aiden, who convocated with a degree in engineering, in civil engineering. He worked really hard all his life pretty much for this. And he likes to point out that he left room for having a life. He said those people graduating with great distinction, they didn't have a life.
Yeah.
Because he was robbed. I don't know what your kids exactly where they stood here, but he was robbed of his last 2 years of high school, which is an important part of the development of a person's life because of COVID, right?
Yeah.
So I said, don't worry, university would be the best years of your life. And I think he made sure that was the case because he made time for socializing, and he's got lots of friends and is doing really well. So he starts a job in a couple of weeks, and well, he's done. I don't have to worry about him anymore. I concern or think of he's done cooking. He's ready for the world.
You know what? Sometime during high school, I realized that was important time too. And I started to have a life during high school, and my grades, consistently went down. So, I was lucky to even go to university or become a university professor because, nothing in high school really seemed that important. It was hard to get up the energy to pay attention to any of it.
You know what I hate is the people who have good grades and have a life. And in high school who didn't have a life,
Yeah.
How do they do it? It's just not possible. It doesn't seem possible.
All right. Well, this is my life. I had a quick little road trip to Waterton Lakes National Park in Alberta, Canada. This is only a 7.5-hour drive from where we live, and it's an excellent little road trip that I think more people around here should take. Our listeners around the world would probably be familiar with Banff, which we talk about occasionally. That's our most famous national park in the Rocky Mountains. But other places like Waterton, they're just smaller. They're a little more quiet. They're not quite as touristy, and just had a lovely few days in Waterton. As you remember, in 2017, they had a massive forest fire, and we've ended up talking about forest fires a lot on the show because, of course, these have all been exacerbated by higher global temperatures. So the Jasper fire we talked about a couple of years ago was massive and, destroyed a lot of the town of Jasper, which is another one of the great national parks nearby. Waterton, it came so close to the town in 2017, and you can see the evidence right up to the town of the trees that were burned. And through some miracle, they managed to save the town back in 2017, and I don't know how.
Well, they might have got lucky. I think it started to rain a little bit at the end.
Yeah.
I remember it well because I was just there and for the first time, and it's adjacent on the U.S. Canadian border, and across the border is Glacier National Park. So it's one continuous national park, and Waterton is part of that.
Yeah.
I should have suggested that you cross the border.
Right.
Because there is Glacier National Park is just stupendous. I think that if you're in the region, you have to go there. It is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. Just stunning views. And they have this Highway to the Sun, I think it's called, where it's just it's this really long journey along a winding road along a mountainside, and the views are just beyond breathtaking. I mean, every turn you take, it's just another breathtaking view. It's people was frustrating me because they tried to go fast and it was bumper to bumper, and it's like, no, one mistake, one wheel falls off, and I'm dead. I'm amazed that people don't go off these really high cliffs.
Yeah.
And then there was one place we stopped when we walked up to a mountain vista, with meadows, and it was just, it's quite something. And it was so easy to do that we did it twice from Waterton.
Right. And a quick shout out to the Waterton Lakes Opera House. They have a 1935 theater, and we went and saw the Sheep Detectives, new Hollywood movie, The Sheep Detectives. And it was a lot of fun. Great old cinema, but it had great picture, great sound. Really, really fun little night.
And you give it how many stars?
The cinema, 10 stars out of 10.
No, the film.
I give it a 7 out of 10. It's fun.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good for Brian. That's an endorsement.
Yeah, Julie Louis-Dreyfus does the main voice. It's a talking sheep movie, and Julie Louis-Dreyfus is the main voice, and she's awesome.
I've seen clips. It looked good. Yeah. Did you charge in the national parks?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Parks Canada, they always have some free level 2 chargers. So every time we parked downtown, we just plugged in and got 2 or 3 hours of charge every day. So
How fast were they?
11 kilowatts I was getting.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good for a public charger. Were they free, did you say?
Yeah, these ones are free. Parks Canada always has some free ones, and it was not too busy. We were able to plug in, and so we left the park with a 100% charge.
Really? For free?
Yeah.
When gas prices are through the roof, eh? That's an incredible situation to be in.
EVs are amazing.
How many chargers do they have?
There was 4 from Parks Canada. So
4 from Parks Canada.
Yeah.
Was there any non-Parks Canada in the charge?
Yeah, there was across the street. There was a flow charger, two faster flow chargers, I think.
Okay, because when I was there, it was pre-electric car era.
Yeah,
and I was dreaming about electric cars, but did I have one? No. Well, that's good to know. On my trip to Saskatoon, I reinstated a Better Route Planner, the app that I use, and it integrates with my car. Gets the battery temperature, the efficiency, the battery capacity, all that. And it was disappointing me. It was about 5% off when it was usually within 3%.
Yeah.
Or 0. So, I mean, that's still pretty good as long as you account for it. If you want to arrive somewhere with 6% battery or more, then you kind of have to say, well, I'll arrive at like around 10% and it'll be fine. And even 5% off is confidence that you're not going to be stranded. So that's the whole long story of range anxiety with EVs.
We're always more confident in the summer, and the estimates are very, very accurate in the summer. And then in the winter, they tend to be not quite as accurate. So you just want to leave yourself 10 or 15% buffer just in case.
So this is around the 1-year anniversary of our Clean Energy Show air quality project. Listeners donated to get an expensive air quality monitor for my yard. I also added a indoor air quality monitor outdoors. I fitted it into a cabinet to protect it from the elements, and it gives me total VOCs on an index from 1 to 100. And it's very important for me because I live near 2 industries. I live near the refinery and near the steel mill. And my daughter is actually working on a presentation for her high school. I don't actually know much about it, but I went out and took some pictures for her last night because she needed a picture and she was very tired. And I went to the top of a hill and I took some pictures. That's on our Patreon page to look at if you want to see where we live in all directions. You can see the steel mill and the refinery. She was looking for numbers for a long time. So I went to that book that wrote a chapter on the refinery. Remember that book by Patricia Elliott? I participated in that chapter. That chapter is available online. It's called Too Big to Govern, I believe. And it is about that refinery and largely how they have fugitive emissions. And those fugitive emissions are unintended emissions that they had to release due to accidents or malfunctions. And there's lots of them. She went there, and together we looked, and we found the source that Patricia Elliott used, which is the national government's website, has a place where you can filter out things and do searches. And it only goes up to 2024. I think it takes a long time to compile the data and to input it all. But yeah, the book was out, 2 years ago now? 1 year ago? I can't even remember. Don't expect me to remember anything on this show. I'm deprived of food. You know how long it's been since I've eaten something? Anyway, my surgery is on Monday. We'll talk about more of that later. So she said that the benzene fugitive emissions have skyrocketed for 23 and 24. And benzene is bad. Let's just put it that way. I'm not an expert on exactly what it does, but it can cause cancer and other bad things. They've been crapping that out of their stacks into the air, into our lungs, into our bloodstreams, high. And no one's talking about it but us, as far as I know. Like, the media is not covering. The media can't cover. We're a small jurisdiction, small media. Media has suffered a lot. And yeah, that's what's going on. So we'll talk more about that as we go along with the Clean Energy Show Air Quality Project. We are monitoring that. She's been looking at the data from our monitor. Yesterday, we had such a good wind that they took our monitor offline because they said it didn't seem to compute. And that's because we had a wind from the southwest where there's no industry. So the air was, it was air quality 1. It was good. It was U.S. Air Quality Index 1, which was as good as it gets. And that's rare. I wish we had those winds all the time.
Okay, from electric, EVs in China have cut so much pollution, it's saving lives at a massive scale. So there was a new peer-reviewed study published in Nature Health that says an estimated 262,000 premature deaths are now prevented because of the cleaner air that they have in China. So they used high-resolution satellite air quality data and machine learning to measure pollution across 150 Chinese cities. And then the researchers compared the actual pollution levels to a counterfactual scenario in which every vehicle on the road still ran on an internal combustion engine. So they took what they learned, plugged in the figures as if all the cars were still combustion. Fine particulate matter dropped 23% in this study. Carbon monoxide dropped 30%. And this is a huge, huge deal because outdoor air pollution causes more than 4 million premature deaths worldwide every year. And roughly a quarter of those occur in China. They have had huge pollution problems in China historically. Long-term exposure to PM 2.5 particles and other pollutants is tied to stroke, heart disease, lung cancer, and respiratory illness. Now, nitrogen dioxide only dropped slightly in this study, as did the coarser particulate matter, and the authors say the culprit is heavy-duty diesel trucks, which remain largely unelectrified and are a major source of nitrogen dioxide and coarse particles. They said these benefits were not evenly distributed. They were concentrated in China's wealthier, more economically developed cities where the adoption of electric vehicles has been the fastest. So they say that to get the best results in the future, they should push deployment of new energy vehicles into the lower income regions and work on the heavy duty diesel vehicles as well. That will give them the best results going forward. And as we know, China now has over 50% of new car sales are electric or plug-in hybrids. This has taken off very, very fast in China. There was a similar study in California. Lancet Planetary Health led a study and found that similar things are happening in California, where we know that they have had massive adoption of zero-emission vehicles as well.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
And I think the latest figures of China in the last, like May, and maybe the month before that when the war was going on with Iran and gas prices were going up.
Yeah.
I think NEV sales, new energy vehicle sales, shot above 61% in China.
Wow.
So that's I don't know if that'll sustain. I think it should with the technology and the availability and the pricing they have. You think it would, and also the chargers.
Yeah, well, the way everyone around here is constantly complaining about gas prices, if we had the kind of electric vehicles available to buy like they have in China, definitely lots more people would be going out to buy electric, because the gas prices around here are driving everybody crazy. A related story from Electriv: fully combustion cars have now disappeared from the top 10 list of best-selling cars in China. There was one remaining internal combustion car, an SUV, the Geely Binyu, and that had been in the top 10 previously the month before, and it's now gone. So all the top 10 selling vehicles in China are now either fully electric or plug-in hybrids or extended range electric cars, which work in a similar way to plug-in hybrids. So yeah, Geely, Tesla, Xiaomi, Leapmotor, Li Auto, BYD, these are the brands that are on the list there. You don't see names like Toyota on there. You don't see Honda on there. They have ceded the market share in China to the Chinese automakers.
No, Tesla's the only one, the only foreign automaker to actually be doing well in China. And the rest of them used to do well, but that's quickly changed. And that should be a lesson about what can happen in the other parts of the world, because they're pretty aggressively exporting, which we'll touch on a bit more in the show.
Yeah.
My prediction, once you reach a certain point, it tends to keep going, right? I mean, when you're around 50%, then you start seeing a lot of people with these cars.
Yeah.
They become more normalized. They become more established. We've seen that in other auto markets.
Yeah, and when you think about how brand loyalty works in autos, especially here in North America, people are very, very brand loyal. They don't want the hassle of trying to figure out how to buy a car from another brand. So, Toyota has tons of brand loyalty and people are sticking to that. But if they don't even appear on this top 10 list, that is now a thing of the past in China.
All right, from Bloomberg and other sources, as you may know, the World Cup, the FIFA 2026 World Cup, is starting this week on Thursday. And the biggest opponent in the 2026 FIFA World Cup may not be another team. It could be the Heat.
Yeah.
Partially due to climate change. And there are people now studying the effects of climate change on major sporting events. The last World Cup was in Qatar 4 years ago. They had to move it to November because the summer heat there is like 50 degrees.
Yeah. There's
outdoor stadiums. And even at night, it's like, if you had it late at night, which they did even in November have them fairly late at night.
Yeah.
It was still hot.
Yeah.
But it's not a game that you can play. I mean, the fans and the players, it's a really hard game to play at that level in heat. We're going to talk about how they're going to mitigate that, but people were really pissed off that they moved it to November because it screwed up the soccer schedules. The other leagues have their play in place where all these guys come from, and November had to break it up, and it was quite, because Qatar had oil money and there was corruption in FIFA. I won't get into that, but there's a lot of stuff going on there, obviously. A new analysis suggests players will face challenging heat and humidity conditions across many host cities in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. So the World Cup is being held in 3 different countries this year. I think it's the first time that's ever happened, or at least in a long time.
Yeah.
And the parts in Canada, not so problematic, although Toronto can get very humid. It can have humidexes in the 40s. And that sort of wet bulb stuff can really wipe out a team if you're playing at that level. However, it's mostly places like Miami and Mexico City that are a concern, although are Mexico as a whole, not necessarily Mexico City, but the southern U.S., different cities it's taking place in. In Canada, it's just Toronto and Vancouver. Vancouver is probably going to be fine, although you never know.
You never know.
We get heat domes there recently, so we'll see. Researchers used wet bulb globe temperatures, or WBGT, a measure that combines temperature and humidity to estimate heat stress on the human body. This is what they use for, determining if people are just going to die sitting in their apartments, an elderly person sitting in their apartment without air conditioning. They study that stuff. And they found that Tunisia, the country of Tunisia's soccer team, or let's call it football from now on, because I know 20% of our listeners are outside North America, so let's call it football. The study found that Tunisia is expected to face the hottest overall group stage schedule of any team in the tournament. So they will be facing a lot of hot games. They've kind of isolated the games to, ostensibly save on climate carbon emissions by not flying them all around. So they're sticking them in different quadrants, at least in the early group stage. Even teams accustomed to hot weather could struggle as the tournament progresses and fatigue accumulates over the 39-day event. They've added a whole bunch of more teams this year than they've ever had before. They're trying to get people interested in soccer all over the world to make as much money as they can. Conditions will vary dramatically between cities and kickoff times, forcing teams to adapt quickly from one match to the next. So you could be playing a match in the evening in a relatively cool city, and your next match might be in the middle of the afternoon in a very hot Miami, and humid Miami, or something like that. The Netherlands could experience temperature swings. This is their football team, could experience temperature swings equivalent to about 23 Fahrenheit in wet bulb temperatures between games. Well, Uzbekistan may see the only minor changes for Uzbekistan. And extreme heat events are becoming more common, as we certainly know, as global temperatures rise due to climate change. Concerns about player safety have already led FIFA to require water breaks during matches. This has happened before. What they do is halfway through each half, they'll stop for a water break. The ref will blow the whistle and they'll have a water break. Because there is no water breaks unless there's an injury. Then you go and grab a water bottle. This is now going to be required for all FIFA games in the World Cup this year, regardless of temperature. So it's just going to be across the board. That's what's going to happen. The Global Players Union, FIFPro, has recommended postponing matches when heat stress levels exceed certain thresholds. And FIFA says that it's also providing measures such as cold towels, well, that's nice, drinks, and shaded areas to help players cope with the conditions. This is a high level of sport. They'll probably have big cooling units blowing on the sidelines, but it doesn't mean that you can necessarily recover from that. You're just standing out there. And even the fans have to stand in lines through long security lines and then go into the stadium, and they're putting up misters and things for them, but it's hard to get water. If you have to stand in line just to get your next water, I mean, you can't bring a giant barrel of water with you to your seat necessarily. I don't think I could handle it in some of those situations, but then I'm pretty delicate. But as the tournament unfolds, managing heat and recovery could become almost as important as tactics and skill on the field, some people theorize, if it gets really bad. Miami could be worse than Qatar, says one expert. Mandatory water breaks in all games halfway through each half, regardless of the weather, as I said, and fans could struggle too. And I think they will, but they're struggling just to get into the United States. Some people, there's parts of teams that aren't even being allowed, that are being scrutinized because the United States is doing what the United States is doing. There's this theory that if it is hot, the games will be less good because people will move slower. They won't have the ability to do very much. We'll have to see what happens, especially in the southern U.S. games is what I'll be looking at, and some of the Mexican games. Most polluting games in history, this is what this is, as a major game event in history, this is the most polluting. As one reason is because they've brought in, more teams. They've added a lot more teams to the World Cup. And the fact is that most soccer fans, most football fans are not in North America. They're coming in to see their teams. America barely seems to know what's going on. I mean, they barely know what it is, it seems. And Canada's the same way in some respects. But that's what they're trying to change, obviously. Mexico is soccer crazy, so that's not an issue. But yes, the most polluting games in history, and it's mostly because of the fans. The fans have to travel to North America on planes. So most of the pollution from the games comes from actually the fans coming to see the games. South Africans following their team through the group stage could rack up 21,000 miles. That's the circumference of the globe, Brian. Easily 5 tons of carbon pollution plus per fan, or like 50,000 plastic bags produced. England is only about 3 tons per fan, the equivalent of heating the average UK home for 19 months. That's just to follow their team through the games.
Yeah. And here's my anecdote about exercise in extreme heat. So about 25 years ago, I was in Toronto, and Toronto can get extremely hot and humid in the summer. And there's soccer games there, so this could be an issue. But one day in Toronto, about 25 years ago, it was about 42 Celsius. And with the humidex, it was 50 degrees Celsius, which is about 122 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's not good.
No. And there were various warnings of people, be careful, don't exert yourself too much. But I was really in shape at the time. I was running every single day. I would do like a 30-minute run every day. And I didn't want to stop. So I thought, I'm going to give it a try. I made it about 10 minutes and I thought, it's probably better if I just stop. This is not good.
Wow, 10 minutes in. Yeah, you got to be very careful if you're exercising. But if those conditions came to the World Cup, there's no question.
Yeah.
No question that there would be some issues. I mean, heat stroke is I think like 250 people had heat stroke in American football, like in the last year. Wow. That's a lot. I mean, they're not going to have this could be amateur, high school, whatever. They're not going to have access to everything that the FIFA World Cup is going to have access to as far as amenities. But it is a risk, and it is a risk to the fans as well. I mean, if you were in the sun in that temperature, just sitting there for 3 hours, it would be interesting. I think there could be a lot of medics taking people out and hooking them up to IVs like it's a mass casualty event.
Yeah.
But I was there around that time, and I did experience, coming from my air-conditioned bachelor pad into the world, it was like, it was getting hit by soup, like you walked through it. It was just so soupy and so humid. And it's not, from the prairies here where we are, you're not used to that. You get humidity, but not like that, and certainly not very often. And I experienced, 50-degree temperatures actual temperatures at Death Valley, and it was like I could take 10 minutes just standing.
Yeah.
It was windy, so it was like a hairdryer on you. Like you just could not take it. Your skin hurt, and you had to get out of the weather as fast as possible.
Yeah, and I only tried it because I was really in shape at the time, like I said. But
well, at least you tried it. Now you know.
Anything more than 10 minutes, it just seemed like I was taking my life into my hands. All right, this next one is from Renewable Energy Magazine. We love to talk about agrivoltaics here on the show, which is where you combine solar panels with agriculture. Well, this new term is offshore wind aquaculture. So over the last 15 years, researchers and industry partners have developed and refined the methods for cultivating sugar kelp in Danish waters. The results show that seaweed can be grown at large scale, thrives under offshore conditions, and absorbs nutrients from the surrounding marine environment as it grows. Denmark, as we know, is undertaking a historic expansion of their offshore wind energy. By 2030, they're going to have vast new areas of sea dedicated to wind turbines in the sea. We're not taking up new marine areas. We're using areas that have already been designated for another purpose, wind turbines. And at the same time, we can share the infrastructure, like service vessels and operational resources for those wind turbines to also work on the seaweed farms. Unlike conventional crops, seaweed requires no agricultural land, no irrigation, no fertilizers. Instead, it grows using the sunlight and nutrients that are already present in the marine environment. And after it's harvested, it can be used in a wide range of applications. Seaweed can be consumed directly as food or as ingredients such as gelling agents, stabilizers, antioxidants, or used in animal feed, other bio-based materials. The challenge, they say, is to build stronger links between production, the food industry, and consumers. So it's not a normal thing for people don't eat seaweed a whole lot, but there is a lot of nutrients in that seaweed. And
I'd kill for some seaweed right now, Brian. I'd eat anything. If we had a listener contact us once who was working transporting seaweed, in Washington State. So there's a market for it. It hasn't maybe taken off quite the way it potentially could.
It's not fully developed, but definitely a thing.
We have some mailbag stuff, so let's dip into the mailbag. Hi, Brian and James. I hope surgery went well. It hasn't gone yet. Thank you for your wishes. If I survive, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And that is a speedy recovery. Let's all hope for that. I saw this segment on MSN Now, or MS Now rather, the other day, and thought it was a very good synopsis of the problem caused for the people by the monopoly utility business model, which we talked about on the show before. I was happy to see this is on the mainstream media. The one subject they didn't cover that I wish they had was municipal utilities. We also have one of those around here in Saskatoon.
Yeah.
In my area, very wealthy communities like Palo Alto, home base for tech venture capitalists, pay 1/2 or less than everyone else in Pacific Gas and Electric's territory because they have their own municipal utility.
Yeah.
There are several other jurisdictions with municipal utilities around here, such as cities of Santa Clara and Sacramento. Otherwise, it's a very good segment. Keep up the great work, Eric, and from the Bay Area. And that video, that's on our Patreon page. So don't worry about it having a membership. Just go there if you want to see that video. It's linked. It's a YouTube video. You can search it as well, but it's there on our Patreon page, patreon.com/cleanenergypod.
Yeah, I think historically, government monopolies as a utility wasn't a terrible idea because it creates stability. If it's a government utility, it's not necessarily needing to make a ton of money and, just keep the grid stable. But certainly around here, that has led to an absolute lack of innovation, which has led to our particular grid being extremely dirty because it is a government monopoly and they just refuse to do anything clean and green.
But as you said before, I mean, it was kind of necessary to have a public utility here 100 years ago when they were building it because it was so sparse, and then, it wouldn't make economic sense for a farmer to have electricity out to their property. So the government sort of subsidized that and had but now it's kind of backfiring because more open electricity markets are more able to see the benefits of cheap renewables, and then they start adding them.
Yeah, electrifying farms here in Saskatchewan, where we live, was a huge, huge deal in the early 20th century and a massive, massive expenditure, which, only makes sense if you're a government and you're trying to develop your province, but could be time to move on. All right, from Canary Media, the U.S.'s first 8-hour grid storage battery goes online in California. So on June 1st, the Tumbleweed project in California's Kern County became the first major battery installation in the U.S. that can discharge power for up to 8 hours at a time. This is twice as long as normal. 4-hour grid storage batteries are typically the norm right now.
Right, and even 4 was relatively recent.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The U.S. power sector now builds more battery storage capacity than any other form of on-demand power, like gas, nuclear, or geothermal. So far, 4 hours is what has made sense given the equipment costs and market opportunities. But back in 2021, California regulators ordered power companies to procure longer duration storage as part of the state's planned transition to zero carbon energy. So the California Community Power, a consortium of local nonprofit power providers, issued this contract for Tumbleweed way back in 2022 in order to fulfill this obligation. And we know that grid storage batteries can go up fairly quickly compared to other forms of energy. But of course, there are regulatory things in the way. There's monetary things in the way. So you do have to work on these things in advance. So planning it back in 2022, not a huge amount of time, but the way they did it was phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 has been in operation already since 2024. And to convert this to the 8-hour battery from the 4-hour battery, they literally doubled the number of battery boxes on site. They said, technology-wise, the differences are pretty trivial. So they really just built phase 1 and then just duplicated that for phase 2, and that gives them 8 hours. Plus, they say they learned a lot from doing the first phase of it. So by the time it came to doing the second phase, any problems that they had encountered.
That's true across the board, though. This is why battery or chemical storage is taking off. Because they have worked out the problems. And this is why I think it's going to drop drastically in the next 10 years, And I remember it wasn't that long ago. I think it was a couple of years ago. I was complaining on the show about the Alberta premier saying said, I was told that 2 hours is what we can have for storage for renewables. So that doesn't, we need something else. We need gas.
Yeah.
Not true. I said,
Not true.
You said, add more batteries. That's what you do. If you have a camcorder or a flashlight, you add more batteries if you want to keep it going. And I wonder what the next threshold will be. What do you think it'll be? Do you think it'll be like 10 or 12?
Well, yeah, it probably doesn't make much sense to go beyond 12, but...
So what's happening here, if you're new to the show, is they're storing up solar or wind from the day.
Yeah.
And then extending that solar over the night. They're charging up with excess solar. They're charging up the batteries, and then the battery feeds into the grid. And there's been examples of California having batteries being the number one source of power on the grid in the evening sometimes. And that was a year ago, 2 years ago even. And that's just going to continue.
Yeah, so in California, they get very strong solar from about 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and that's when they charge up these batteries. And then you run the batteries from approximately like 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., so then you just have that low demand period from 2 a.m. to 8 a.m., and they fill that right now with wind, nuclear, geothermal, hydropower, some fossil gas. But, California has a law in place that says they will not be burning any fossil fuels by 2045. So, obviously this is the way to go, 8-hour batteries, 12-hour batteries, or whatever. But, the regulations that they've made in California are all important to this. Their long duration procurement policy has kind of made all this possible because it's maybe not immediately economical to deploy all this, but they know they have these goals and these targets that they have to meet. And this is called planning for the future.
Well, Texas is taking off with batteries. We've talked about that on the show, and that's kind of like a free market grid.
Yeah.
It's their own grid.
Yeah.
And they're leading in battery deployment, although I haven't heard about 8 hours yet. Australia, I think I have, but not necessarily in Texas.
This is the first one in the U.S. that's 8 hours, but they do exist in other places.
And another thing you can do is you can charge up overnight when there's there's lower demand and the electricity prices are lower. This is something you could do in your own home.
Yeah.
If you have one of those batteries like a Tesla wall. Power walls, okay.
But
or you can charge your car.
Yeah, lots of places that have lots of nuclear power, they tend to have very low energy rates overnight.
All right, if you want to contact us, and gosh, we hope you do, contact us by email if you don't mind, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. You can also leave us a voicemail, of course, online at speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow.
We are an independent podcast powered by listeners like you. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/cleanenergypod. You can join for free or for as little as $1 a month and get ad-free episodes, early access, exclusive content, discounts on merch, shout out on the show depending on your support level. And thank you everybody for joining and for helping to keep independent climate journalism alive. Coming up next, it's the lightning round.
Now at Lowe's, faster quotes start at the Lowe's Pro Desk. Got a material list handwritten on a sticky note or saved as a photo? Perfect. Bring it to us and get a quote in minutes. And if you don't see what you need on the shelf, we'll help you get it. You can access thousands of products beyond what's available in store or on Lowe's.com, right from the Lowe's Pro Desk. Build quotes faster and source the materials you need to keep your jobs moving. Just like that, at Lowe's.
It's time for the lightning round.
The lightning round is a fast-paced look at the latest headlines in climate, clean energy, and
From
transportation.
Power Magazine, America's only commercial uranium enricher is privately building a new plant. Uranium enrichment is a critical step in making fuel for nuclear power plants. So the United States currently has limited domestic enrichment capacity, and by expanding its New Mexico facility by roughly 50%, Urenco will help reduce reliance on foreign suppliers, which is something you have to rely on, like oil and gas. Even with nuclear, you have to rely on foreign things usually. Foreign suppliers. Russia is a big supplier of enriched uranium that's used in nuclear. And Terrace Nuclear's Mark Zero microreactor has achieved zero power criticality at its Idaho National Laboratories, the first advanced reactor designed to reach this milestone. The reactor uses advanced triso fuel and a sodium heat pump cooling system, which we talked about before in the show. These technologies are designed to improve safety, reliability, and efficiency. It means the reactor has successfully sustained a controlled nuclear chain reaction for the first time, and a major proof of concept milestone that shows the design works as intended and brings advanced microreactors one step closer to commercial deployment. We have nuclear fans listening to the show and nuclear haters. I'm just putting it out there. Donut Labs, remember them? Much talked about supposed battery breakthrough. Well, it's a fraud, Brian. According to Electric, it's lithium ion and not some sort of solid-state sodium battery, at least according to a test by some YouTubers that used experts to break it down. BYD has allocated 102 dealers in Mexico.
Wow.
And that's more than Toyota. And that's notable because Toyota's been there for 20 years. I'm surprised it's only been 20 years, but they've been there for 20 years. And instantly, this is what's going on. And BYD only makes electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles.
They see an opportunity and they are going big and they're going hard.
China's May auto sales, we talked about earlier in the show. Model Y was number 2. Brian, sell me on the Model Y. Why is it so popular?
The charging network. It's kind of the right size and shape, I think, for most people. That kind of, crossover SUV design, lots of room in the hatch. And if you pay for the software, it can drive itself.
Which you do, and it does.
Yeah.
How much driving did you do on your trip to Waterton?
Oh, I'm probably 1%.
Are you going to forget how to drive?
But
you
especially
have to take driving classes?
Especially for road trips, obviously, because the highway miles are kind of the easiest. Where we tend to shut it off is, parking situations or stuff like that. There was recently some guys did that cross-country trip in Canada. They went coast to coast in Canada, which is a very long way, and did it all on full self-driving, never touched the steering wheel or the pedals one time.
Well, that's impressive. KLM operated Germany's first passenger jet flight using 5% blend of synthetic kerosene. That's jet fuel.
Yeah.
And so they used 5% of the jet fuel they used was synthetic and is more environmental, supposedly. We'll see. That's one solution, or one aid for air travel, is to change the fuel to something that's more sustainable. A new 330-mile-long transmission line can now transmit 1,250 megawatts of hydropower from Quebec, Canada to New York City. We talked about that on the show. It is now live, so don't touch it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there. 10.4 terawatt hours of clean energy annually. See, I'm deprived of nutrition. To New York City, and decrease CO2 emissions by 3.9 million metric tons per year. Extreme heat will double U.S. hospitalizations by 2040, a new study finds. And a sharp rise in hospital visits will drive up annual healthcare costs for heat-related conditions over $1 billion. And 10% of them will be World Cup players. Waymo buys Apple's abandoned self-driving car proving ground for $220 million. Proving ground is like acres of land where you've got roads that you build.
Yeah.
Like a little test city.
Test tracks, yeah.
Apple was trying to make a car, and now Waymo bought it. I don't know why Waymo wants it. I mean, they're already driving in complicated situations. What do they have to prove on a pretend road?
That's a good point.
Unless they're putting pedestrians walking across, and horses and UFOs and everything else that it might have to avoid.
There's certain things that would be difficult to test in the real world, that's for sure.
Ukraine has officially approved a new electric motorcycle for use by its armed forces, highlighting the growing role that battery-powered two-wheelers are playing in modern military operations. I don't know war's bad?
Yeah.
Pollution's bad? I don't know about that.
But we love electric things.
And finally this week, fossil fuels are starting to look less like an energy solution and more like a national security problem. The recent shock around the Strait of Hormuz sent governments scrambling, with more than 60 countries rolling out about 200 emergency measures to prevent fuel shortages, price spikes, and even riots. We complain here. That's what we do. We complain about high gas prices. But in some places, there's riots because it's really hitting different countries hard.
Yeah.
And we forget about that. We have covered that on the show, but we forget about that. A disruption thousands of kilometers away can suddenly affect what people pay at the pump around the world. And meanwhile, renewables just keep getting cheaper. About 91% of new wind and solar projects now produce electricity at a lower cost than fossil fuels. One energy system depends on tankers, pipelines, and geopolitical stability. The other depends on sunshine and wind. And as clean energy gets cheaper, it's becoming harder to justify staying hooked on fuels that can trigger economic chaos every time there's trouble in a major oil-producing region. And I don't know when that thing is going to get resolved. It's getting dragged out by the Iranians.
No.
And Trump is looking careful.
We all expected it to be resolved by now, but it is not. All right, you can find the Clean Energy Show on social media like TikTok, Instagram, and Blue Sky as Clean Energy Pod. The email again is cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. And remember to hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening to the podcast, and you'll get new episodes every week.
Yeah, patreon.com/cleanenergypod. Go there now. Sign up. Don't sign up. Just bookmark it. Do whatever you want. Thank you to our Patreon Clean Club executive members who generously provide every month a lot of money. Green Bastard, Brent Rowley, Tiernan. Thank you all for supporting this podcast. And I think I will not be seeing you next week because I'll be in surgery.
Yeah.
So maybe in a couple of weeks, we'll try to put the show together with Brian, and I'll just grunt every now and again. But we'll see. Check our Patreon page for updates on how that's going to go, and maybe a post-op picture of James giving a thumbs up. If I survive.
Yeah.
If I don't survive, there's not going to be any autopsy information posted as far as I know.
You'll be fine, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yes, take all the time you need to recover. I'm sure our listeners will understand, and we'll see you back when we can be here.